Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my fiancée ever did was leave my engagement ring on the kitchen counter like it was something she tried on at a store, then walk out with a richer man while I was still standing there begging her to tell me what I'd done wrong. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even look back. She just said, "I can't marry, struggle," and let the door close behind her like my life was a room she was done cleaning. Here's how it happened. I'm a black man from Cleveland, the kind who believed love was supposed to feel like safety. I'm not dramatic by nature. I used to think if you paid your bills, stayed loyal, and showed up on time, you could build a life that didn't shake every time the wind changed. My fiancée, Imani Rivers, used to tell me she loved that about me. How steady I was, how I didn't chase attention. She said I felt like home. I held on to those words like they were a contract, not realizing people can say forever and still mean until something better appears. I met Imani at a friend's cookout on the east side when I was 27. She laughed with her whole chest, like she wasn't ashamed of joy. She had that clean, put-together look even in a simple t-shirt. Edges neat, nails done, earrings catching light when she talked. We started slow. Dates after work, long walks through Edgewater Park, nights cooking something cheap and pretending it was fancy. She'd lean against me and talk about the future like it was already ours. Wedding colors. A little house. Kids one day. I believed her because I wanted to. Back then I worked facilities maintenance for a hospital system. Nothing glamorous, but it was steady. I'm the guy who fixed leaks at 2 in the morning and got thanked like a vending machine. Quick, then forgotten. I didn't mind. I liked being useful. Imani worked as an admin for a medical billing office at the time, and she always complained about the politics of it all. I told her I didn't care about office games. I cared about peace. She'd smile and call me old school. She'd say, "That's why I'm marrying you." When I proposed, it wasn't in some big public moment. It was at home, just us after dinner. I put the ring in a small box and slid it across the table. My hands were shaking because the whole idea of asking someone to bind their life to mine felt holy. Imani stared at it, blinked fast, and smiled like she was holding tears back. She said yes. She jumped into my arms. She kissed me hard. Later, she posted a photo of the ring on her hand, captioned something about "finally," and I didn't think anything of it. The first crack didn't look like a crack. It looked like a new opportunity. Imani got a job offer in Chicago. Better pay, better title, better everything. She said it was our step up, that we'd do long distance for a while, and then I'd transfer or find work there. I told her I'd support her, because I loved her, because I thought partnerships were about sacrifice. We promised weekends, FaceTimes, visits. The first month, she called all the time. The second month, she called less. The third month, I started feeling like I was calling into someone else's life, getting the voicemail of a person who used to be mine. That's when Grant Holloway entered the story. Imani mentioned him like he was nothing. A guy at work. A friend. He's just helpful. She said his name with that casual tone people use when they want you to accept something without examining it. She told me he was black too, a little older, already established, real estate and investments, always wearing clean coats and watches that looked heavy. She said he gave her advice about negotiating salary and navigating office politics. I was proud of her for having support. I didn't know I was clapping for the man replacing me. The first time I saw Grant was at a restaurant in downtown Chicago when I visited. Imani wanted me to meet some coworkers. I showed up in my best button down, nerves tight in my chest, trying to be friendly. Grant stood when I approached like he owned the air. He shook my hand too firmly, looked me over too long, and smiled like he'd already decided what I was worth. "So you're the fiancé," he said. "Not man or brother, just the fiancé," like I was a job title that could be reassigned. Imani laughed at something he said and leaned toward him without thinking. My stomach turned, but I swallowed it. After that night, Imani started comparing things without saying she was comparing. She'd ask questions that weren't questions. "Do you ever think about going back to school? Do you have a plan for 5 years? How long do you think you'll stay in maintenance?" I answered honestly. I wanted to grow, but I didn't want debt. I wanted stability, not struggle with a prettier name. She'd go quiet, then tell me she was just thinking out loud. But I could hear it, the sound of her moving my life into the not enough category, one sentence at a time. Then my hours got cut. The hospital had budget issues, and they started squeezing departments. Overtime disappeared. My check shrank. I didn't panic at first. I told myself it was temporary. I picked up side work, small repairs, fixing people's furnaces, patching drywall, anything to keep my savings intact. I didn't tell Imani right away because I didn't want to stress her out. When I did tell her, her voice changed. Not worried, not supportive, just disappointed, like I'd shown up late to a meeting I didn't schedule. Our wedding deposit was already paid. Venue in Cleveland, modest, not some grand ballroom, just a nice place that felt warm. I'd been proud I could afford it. But when money tightened, I asked Imani if we could slow down on some of the extras. Less expensive flowers, maybe a smaller cake. She sighed like I'd insulted her. I'm not doing a cheap wedding, she said. People are going to be there. I told her the marriage mattered more than the party. She said, that's easy to say when you're not the one being looked at. I remember standing in my kitchen after the call, phone in my hand, feeling like I'd been punished for wanting something real. Around that time, her mother started calling me less. When she did call, it was never to ask how I was. It was to ask what our plan was. Her tone turned sharp, like she'd been briefed on my failures. She said things like, Imani needs a man who can lead. She said, love isn't enough. I wanted to tell her that love is supposed to be enough to keep you from treating people like disposable furniture, but I kept it respectful. I kept it calm. I kept giving people the benefit of the doubt, like that's a virtue and not a way of bleeding quietly. My best friend, Darius, noticed before I did. Darius is the kind of man who reads energy like weather. He told me, she's funny. I got defensive. I told him not to put poison in my head. He didn't argue. He just said, if she's solid, questions won't hurt her. That sentence sat in my chest. The next time Imani canceled a weekend visit for the third time, I asked her straight up if there was someone else. She laughed, actually laughed, then said, you're being insecure. She told me I was exhausted. She told me she didn't have time to babysit my feelings. I try to fix it the way men like me fix things, with effort. I drove to Chicago unannounced one weekend, thinking I could surprise her, remind her who we were. I brought her favorite pastries. I wore the cologne she used to love. I texted her that I was outside. She didn't answer for 20 minutes. When she finally did, her message was cold. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I told her I wanted to see her. She said she was busy. When she opened the door, she didn't hug me. She stood in the doorway like I was a delivery. Her apartment looked different. Not messy, just staged. Like the kind of tidiness you do when you're hiding a life. I sat on the couch and tried to be normal while my heart knocked against my ribs. She kept checking her phone. She kept smiling at something on the screen, then forcing her face back to neutral. I asked who she was talking to. She said, work. I asked why she seemed distant. She said, because you showed up without asking. That word, asking, hit me hard. I was her fiancé. I was supposed to be family. But she was treating access to her like a privilege I had to earn. That night, I woke up thirsty and walked toward the kitchen. Her bedroom door was half open, and I saw her in bed, phone up, face lit by the screen. She was smiling the kind of smile you don't wear for spreadsheets. I froze. Then I heard her whisper, soft and sweet, I miss you too. I stood there like a shadow, my whole body hot with humiliation, and she didn't even notice. When she finally looked up and saw me, her expression snapped into irritation. Why are you creeping? She hissed. Not, I'm sorry. Not, this isn't what it looks like. Just annoyed that I existed at the wrong moment. I left Chicago the next morning with my chest aching like I'd been punched. I drove back to Cleveland in silence, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself couples go through phases. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself everything except the truth. She was already gone, and she was just keeping me on the line until she was sure the next branch could hold her weight. 2 weeks later, she came back to Cleveland for what she called a serious talk. She met me at our apartment, the one we picked together. She didn't sit down. She walked straight to the counter, took off her ring, and set it down like she was returning something. The metal clicked on the granite, and that sound is burned into my memory. "I can't do this," she said. "I've outgrown it." I asked her what it was. She looked at me like I was slow. "This life," she said, "always watching pennies. Always waiting. I'm not struggling with marriage." I asked if there was someone else. She rolled her eyes. "I'm not doing this," she said, like my question was a childish tantrum. I asked her if Grant was involved. Her mouth tightened. "Grant is stable," she said. "Grant knows what he's doing." That was all the confirmation I needed. She didn't apologize. She didn't soften. She just grabbed a suitcase she'd packed earlier and walked out. Her mother didn't call me. Her friends unfollowed me. The silence around my name felt organized. The aftermath wasn't just emotional. It was financial. The wedding deposits were mostly non-refundable. I'd put down the majority because I was trying to be a man. I had bills stacked like shame. When my hours got cut again, my savings finally broke. I got behind on rent. I tried to pick up more side work, but winter hit hard, and everybody wanted cheap fixes for expensive problems. The apartment started feeling like a place I'd failed in. Every corner reminded me of promises that now belonged to someone else. The worst part wasn't even the loneliness. It was how people treated me once the story got out, like I must have done something to deserve it. Some folks love to blame the one left behind because it keeps them from facing how cruel life can be. Imani told people I was unmotivated. She told them I was comfortable being average. She didn't say she abandoned me at my lowest. She didn't say she used my steady money when it benefited her and then walked away when it got hard. She framed it like self-improvement, like leaving me was a form of growth. Darius stayed, but he couldn't fix it. He'd come by with food, sit with me in silence, watch me stare at the wall like I was waiting for it to explain why I wasn't enough. One night, after I got a final notice from my landlord, I broke. Not loud sobbing, just quiet tears I couldn't control. Darius didn't give me speeches. He just said, "You're still here. That means there's still something to build." I didn't believe him then. I just wanted the pain to stop. I lost the apartment 2 months later. Not in a dramatic eviction with the sheriff, just a slow, humiliating move out after I couldn't catch up. I packed my life into bags and boxes and felt like I was shrinking. I moved to my cousin's place in Columbus because Cleveland felt haunted. My cousin, Renee, gave me her couch and didn't ask questions the first week. Then, one night, she quietly asked, "Did she ever love you?" That question hurt more than any insult. Because I didn't know. I still don't know. Love shouldn't vanish the moment your bank account changes. In Columbus, I worked nights at a warehouse for quick money. It was brutal. Cold air, heavy pallets, supervisors who treated grown men like children, time clocks that felt like chains. I come home as the sun rose and collapse on the couch, body vibrating with exhaustion. I started looking at my hands and thinking about how they'd built so much for other people, fixed their comfort, kept their lights on, yet couldn't hold on to my own life. That's the kind of thought that turns into bitterness if you let it. I didn't want bitterness. I wanted survival. I saw an ad for HVAC classes at a community college and stared at it like it was a door. I'd already done maintenance, already understood systems, already had experience. HVAC would be a real skill I could own. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't quick, but it was something. I enrolled. Warehouse nights, classes in the morning, sleep when I could. My life turned into a loop of fatigue and determination. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out. I stopped chasing closure from people who didn't care. I just worked. There were nights I sat in my car after class and cried. Not because of Imani, exactly, but because of what her leaving exposed, how fragile my life was, how close I'd been to drowning without realizing it. I remember eating peanut butter out of a jar with a plastic spoon because it was cheap protein. I remember skipping meals so I could pay for books. I remember the shame of wearing the same work boots until the soles started peeling. I remember all of it because that's what people don't see when they say, "Just level up." Leveling up hurts. During that time, I didn't date. I didn't flirt. My heart was closed like a fist. I told myself I wasn't lonely. I was focused. The truth was I was scared. Scared to trust again, scared to be measured by money again, scared to build another us and watch it get traded in like a phone upgrade. Some nights I'd scroll past old photos of Imani and feel my throat tighten. Then I'd force myself to stop. I didn't want nostalgia to become a prison. I finished the program and got licensed. My first real HVAC job was with a small company in Columbus. Then I moved again, this time by choice, to Dallas because the work was better, the market was growing, and I needed a city that didn't know my heartbreak. Dallas felt like a place where people minded their business. I rented a modest townhouse in a quiet area. Not fancy, but clean. I bought a used truck. I kept my head down. Every paycheck I saved. Not for flexing. For freedom. I started taking side calls, small repairs on weekends, emergency fixes after hours. I did good work, on time, and with honest pricing. People remembered that. A landlord recommended me to another landlord. A property manager gave me a list of buildings. My phone started ringing more. At first it scared me, like good things were suspicious. But I learned to accept progress without waiting for it to be taken. I filed paperwork and opened an LLC. I didn't announce it. I didn't post a logo. I just built it quietly, invoice by invoice. 2 years after Monty left, I had steady contracts servicing several mid-sized buildings. I wasn't rich, but I was stable in a way that felt different from my old stability. This stability belonged to me. I could lose a job and still breathe because I had savings. I could handle a crisis without begging anybody. I started sleeping through the night. I started eating real meals. I started lifting weights again. My shoulders broadened. My face looked less tired. When I caught my reflection in a window, I saw a man who had survived something and didn't need permission to keep living. That's what people misunderstand about private success. It doesn't look like applause. It looks like waking up without dread. It looks like paying bills early. It looks like I have options. I didn't chase revenge. I didn't stalk Imani online. I didn't call her family. I let the past sit where it belonged, behind me. But the universe has a way of looping things back around, not for drama, but for truth. The property management company that gave me my biggest Dallas contract was attached to a real estate investor named Grant Holloway. I didn't know it at first. His name was just a signature on a document, a faceless owner. Then one day I was at a building dealing with recurring drainage issues, and I saw him in the lobby. Same posture, same expensive coat, same watch. He walked like the floor should thank him. When our eyes met, his face tightened for a half second, then smoothed into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, he said, "Look who it is." I didn't give him the reaction he wanted. I just nodded and said, "How can I help you?" That threw him off, like he expected bitterness. He looked me up and down the way he did in Chicago, still measuring. "So you're doing this now?" he said, like work was surprising to me. I said, "Yes, sir." He laughed and leaned closer. "Imani always said you were handy," he said, voice low, "just not ambitious." He smirked like he'd landed a punch. I kept my face blank. Inside, my chest burned, but I didn't feed him. Grant started hovering around my jobs after that, showing up randomly, asking pointed questions, trying to find weakness. I learned quickly what kind of man he was, the kind who sees other people as tools. Tenants weren't people to him. They were revenue. Maintenance wasn't safe. It was a cost to avoid. He'd ask for the cheapest fix even when it wasn't right. He'd pressure managers to patch instead of replace. When inspectors came around, he'd suddenly care about standards, then go back to cutting corners as soon as the threat passed. I kept notes, not for revenge, just because that's how you protect your business. A few months later, Imani came back into view without warning. I wasn't looking for her, but Dallas has a way of shrinking when you least expect it. I was at a supply warehouse picking up parts when I heard my name. The voice at my spine first, soft, familiar, careful. I turned, and there she was, Imani Rivers, hair styled like she meant to be noticed, coat too expensive for just errands, eyes scanning me like she was searching for evidence. She smiled like we were old friends. "Wow," she said, "it's really you." My body reacted before my mind did. My stomach tightened. My throat went dry. Not love, just memory. She looked me over slowly, taking in the truck keys, the work jacket with my company name, the calm in my face. "You look good," she said, voice warm. Then she stepped closer like she still belonged near me. She didn't ask if she could. She just took the space. "I've been thinking about you," she added, like that was supposed to mean something. I waited. I let silence do the work. People like Imani hate silence because it doesn't give them control. She filled it quickly. She told me she was back in Dallas for a while. She told me life had been complicated. She told me she'd grown. She never said the words, "I'm sorry." Not once. She never asked how I survived. She never acknowledged what she did. Instead, she asked where I live now, what I was doing, if I was happy. The questions felt like inventory. Then she said, "Grant has been different." She sighed like she was the victim of the weather. He's stressed. Things are happening. And she looked at me with the same eyes she used to use when she wanted me to fix something. "I miss what we had," she said. "I miss how you were. How you are." She reached for my hand. I pulled it back. Her smile flickered, then returned sharper. "Don't be like that," she said. "We're adults." That's when I realized she didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because she saw what I became, steady, self-contained, useful again. She was trying to step back into my life the way she stepped out, without consequence. And the craziest part? She spoke about her betrayal like it was a career move. "I had to choose stability," she said. "I had to do what was best for me." I remembered her ring clicking on my counter in Cleveland and wondered how someone could carry that kind of cruelty so lightly. Imani asked if we could talk somewhere private. I told her no. She laughed like I was being dramatic. "So you're mad forever?" she asked. Her tone wasn't remorseful. It was irritated. I said, "I'm not mad. I'm just not available." The word made her eyes narrow. She wanted me to be angry because anger still ties you to someone. Calm means the door is closed. She tried another angle. "You know, I supported you in my own way," she said. "Seeing you like this makes me proud." Proud. Like my suffering was a workout routine she inspired. Over the next week, she texted me twice. She didn't ask permission. She didn't ease in. She just appeared on my phone like she still had access. "Hey, stranger." Then, "I saw something that reminded me of you." Then, "Can we catch up?" I didn't respond. The third message was the one that showed her real face. "I'm not asking for much. You don't have to be cruel." Cruel. Like the cruel thing was me not letting her back in after she broke me. That message made my hands shake with anger I hadn't felt in years. Around the same time, my property manager called about one of Grant's biggest buildings. "We have an inspection coming," she said. "Grant wants everything perfect." I almost laughed. When people like him finally care, it's because consequences are close. The building had recurring issues that should have been addressed long ago. Old lines, worn systems, patch jobs stacked on patch jobs. I'd flagged it, recommended full replacements, and been ignored. Now Grant wanted miracles. He called me personally that night. "I'm going to need you to handle this," he said, like he was granting me honor. I told him I'd do the work required under contract, but I wasn't doing illegal shortcuts. He got quiet, then his voice sharpened. "Don't get righteous with me," he said. "Just do your job." He threatened to end my contract. I stayed calm. "If you want it done right, it'll cost what it costs," I said. "If you want it done cheap, find someone else." He scoffed and hung up. My heart pounded, but I didn't back down. I didn't build my business just to become someone else's panic button. The next day, I went to the building and looked at the systems again. The truth was simple. It needed major repairs. Not because of one accident, because of years of neglect. Tenants had been complaining. Management had been patching. Grant had been squeezing. Everybody had been surviving around his greed. The inspection wasn't just about compliance. It was about safety. And there's a quiet rage that comes from realizing people like him treat families like numbers. Kids live in those units. Elders breathe that air. Lives happen in those rooms. That night, Imani called me. Actually called. I stared at her name on my screen like it was a ghost. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway, her voice smooth, impatient. "I just want to talk," she said. "Grant is going through something, and it's affecting me. I need a friend. A friend." Like she didn't erase me. Like she didn't laugh at my pain. Like she hadn't stood in my kitchen and declared my life beneath her. There was no remorse in her voice. Only the expectation that I would still serve her, because I always did. The morning of the inspection, Grant tried to force a last-minute cheap fix. He had a guy, another contractor, do a rushed patch on an aging main line. I wasn't there when they did it, but I saw the aftermath. Within hours, the line failed. Not a small leak. A full, ugly backup that spread fast. Water where water shouldn't be. Smell that makes your stomach turn. Tenants in the lobby shouting. Families stepping around wet floors, holding children close. Management panicking. Inspectors arriving in chaos. Grant wasn't stable then. He was furious. At everyone except himself. What happened next wasn't dramatic in a Hollywood way. It was worse, because it was real. The city documented everything. Inspectors took photos. Tenants filed complaints on the spot. They pulled old reports that showed the problems weren't new. They found patterns. They found corners cut. They found delays. They found neglect. When accountability finally shows up, it doesn't show up with a fist fight. It shows up with paperwork, timelines, and consequences that don't care how good you look in a suit. Grant tried to bully his way through it. He raised his voice. He blamed the property manager. He blamed the contractors. He blamed tenant misuse. He never once said, "I should have fixed it." The inspector didn't flinch. The city issued emergency compliance orders and fines. They demanded immediate remediation, full replacements, follow-up inspections. Tenants started talking to each other, comparing stories, realizing their individual problems were actually a system of neglect. A class action attorney showed up within days. Grant's bank got nervous. Credit lines tightened. The chain reaction began. Imani's texts got more frequent right after that. She suddenly had time. "Can I see you? I'm overwhelmed. I didn't realize things were like this." Still no apology. Still no accountability. She framed it like she was experiencing bad luck, like the universe had attacked her personally. Then she slipped and showed her hand. "You seem like you're doing well. I could really use someone solid in my corner. Someone solid, not someone loved. Someone useful." My stomach turned the same way it did when she said, "I can't marry." 2 nights later, she showed up at my townhouse. I didn't tell her my address. That alone told me enough. She stood on my porch in the cold. Makeup perfect, eyes glossy like she practiced tears. "Please," she said, "just talk to me." I opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it behind me. I didn't invite her in. Her eyes flicked past me toward the warm light inside. She wanted entry. She wanted access. She wanted comfort she didn't earn. "You look settled," she said, voice softer. "I'm happy for you." Then she looked at me like she expected me to melt. "I made choices," she added, shrugging slightly, like betrayal was a scheduling conflict. "I did what I had to do." I waited for the apology that never came. She kept going. "Grant isn't who I thought," she said. "He's not stable like he pretended. He's messy. Messy. Like the harm he caused was a cluttered room." "I just want peace," she said. And that's when I knew she still didn't understand what she took from me. I told her calmly, "You left when my life got hard. You didn't check on me. You didn't care if I ate. You didn't care where I slept. You didn't apologize. And now you're here because you think my peace is available to you." Her face hardened. "So you're punishing me," she said. "Not remorse, anger. You're acting like you're better than me." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. People who refuse accountability will call boundaries cruel because it protects you from being used. "I'm not better than you," I said. "I'm just done being your backup plan." She scoffed. "You're still the same," she snapped. "Still trying to be noble. Still trying to teach lessons." Then she did the cruelest thing again. She tried to rewrite history. "If you had been more ambitious, I wouldn't have needed to leave," she said, eyes sharp. "You can't blame me for wanting more." There was no remorse in her voice, only entitlement. I felt something inside me finally go quiet, like a door locking. I looked at her and said the only comeback that mattered. "I am still me. I'm just no longer available to people who only recognize my value when it becomes useful." She stared like I'd slapped her. Then her mouth twisted. "Wow," she said. "So you did change. You got a cold." Cold. That word is what people call you when you stop burning yourself to keep them warm. I told her good night. I went inside and locked the door. A minute later, I blocked her number. Grant's fall kept unfolding without my involvement. That's the part that felt like karma. I didn't have to scheme. I didn't have to expose him. His own habits did it. The lawsuits progressed. The compliance costs piled up. Tenants demanded repairs and rent abatements. Banks tightened terms. He tried to refinance and couldn't. He tried to sell and realized buyers could smell desperation. He started unloading properties to survive. And the property management company called me one morning, voice professional, like it was just business. Ownership is changing on the Holloway portfolio, they said. We'll need updated service agreements. A month after the inspection disaster, one of Grant's buildings transferred to a new owner. Quietly. No headlines. No spectacle. The new owner hired my company for full system replacements, the work Grant refused to do. I did it right because that's who I am. Later, I found out through paperwork that one of the smaller properties had been purchased by an LLC connected to my name, something I'd set up months earlier with savings I protected like it was oxygen. I didn't brag. I didn't announce it. I just signed documents at a desk, went home, and made dinner in silence. That kind of victory is private for a reason. I never got closure from Amani. She never apologized. She never admitted wrong. In my mind, that's exactly why the ending felt satisfying, because her karma wasn't my forgiveness. It was her running out of people to use. It was her realizing she couldn't return a ring and then reclaim the life attached to it. Grant kept blaming everyone else. I heard. Imani kept telling people I changed. I heard. Maybe they'll say that forever. But I sleep at night. I wake up without dread. I build a life that doesn't require anyone to choose me to be real. And the best part is they'll never be able to take it because I didn't build it for them to see. If you made it to the end, you just watch what private success really looks like. No speeches, no revenge, just results. Now tell me in the comments, would you forgive Imani or would you block her like I did? And if you want more real, grounded karma stories like this, subscribe because the next one is even colder and it starts with one message that changes everything. Forgive or block. Private success wins. Subscribe for the next story, the end.